Now, more revelations continue to emerge over how 7 commercial banks in the country have collapsed over the last 1 year. In the latest revelations from documents, auditors of the banks that collapsed, there are revelations Capital Bank used money meant to support its operations to establish businesses in Zimbabwe and other African countries. Now, Evans Mensah joins me with more on this. According to the Bank of Ghana report, there were serious regulatory infractions on the part of shareholders and directors of the 2 banks, as well as complicity on the part of the regulator. Evans, let's get into what you have at the moment. Which of them would you say is, or where would you want to start? Apparently, because there's quite a bit in there.
There's quite a bit. Let's start with what you talked about Capital Bank. There's a bit about UT Bank. In essence, how some monies loans were given in violation of Bank of Ghana rules.
Okay. Or before we get to do that, let's put it into proper context. Which report is this?
So this is a report. It starts from 2014 all the way to 2016. Report that the Bank of Ghana commissioned. It's sort of an inspection monitoring report.
Is it something they commissioned after the collapse?
No, this is way before the collapse. This starts in 2014, and details everything that the Bank of Ghana sort of knew at the time. And it was done by Boulders Advisors Limited, in essence, that laid out everything that happened. It tracks all the transactions, dealings, etc., that they felt were improper.
Okay, so let's start with the Capital Bank bit.
So Capital Bank, the report says that the Capital Bank, there was a web of transactions involving insider parties. And that is directors, shareholders, and their related companies. Now, a committee was then set up by the board of directors and was tasked to investigate these transactions. Now, the findings were that the initial transactions implied willful deceit. At the time of the conversion from a savings and loans, remember that the Capital Bank used to be a First Capital Plus a savings and loans company. At the time that we're moving from the savings and loans to a full tier 1 banking license to acquire that, the report found that the transactions that led to that conversion was based on willful deceit. It says that at this stage the shareholders appear to, quote, re-engineer capital amounting to 56 million through suspect placements to local financial institutions. It says that on the 30th of March 2016, the CEO of Capital Bank wrote to the head of banking supervision requesting that a non-existent investment of 482.4 million, which included the 56 million, should be converted into a 5-year debt. The money didn't exist, but he had written that restructured as a debt will pay in 5 years. Now, it goes on to state that the Banking Supervision Department, in a letter dated 3rd June, then grants the permission
for them to do that.
And however, it identified 4 individuals who it says should pay back that money over the period. Atuesian, Oheneba, Osaya Koto, Stephen Enchel, and Kingsley Atagansa. It notes that going forward, the major shareholder in Capital Bank, who was supposed to pay back the money in 5 years, Mr. Atuesian, quote, flouted all banking and risk management rules, treating deposited funds and public funds as their personal piggy bank. He says he used depositors' funds totaling 80 million cedis to invest in business ventures such as, and he touched on that at the top of the bulletin, in Ghana, Ocean Spring Mineral Water, Britlink Services, Ginyami Realty Limited, Capital and More Company, or Company Limited, Ascent Financial Services Limited, ESICH Life Assurance Limited, and then Capital Africa Group. But they did not only spend, as the report said, depositors' funds on these institutions I've mentioned, they even went international. So in Zimbabwe, they invested in First Capital Plus LLC. In other words, they opened a branch of First Capital Plus in Zimbabwe. They also invested in Jinyame Resources Limited and Bill Minerals LLC in Zimbabwe. In South Africa, he also had Asian Swiss International Capital Holdings, ASIC, and there were other connected entities like Nordia Capital, Commerce Savings, and then Sovereign Bank Limited itself, which obviously we now know had gone under.
Yeah.
Now, there were also the document details regulatory and supervision over lapses, infractions. In other words, it says, for example, a review of the issuance of the banking license to Capital Bank reviews that complacency and complicity on the part of the BOG. For instance, the BOG had asked them to place the money. So during the application stage, the Capital Bank shareholders produced evidence of only 23.3 million GHCDs, liquid investments, and 51.5 million liquid investments. Now, a provisional license was then issued on condition that they will submit the submission of evidence of lodgement of additional capital funds needed be made up of the required 60 million. The said funds should be lodged in an escrow account which will be verified by the Bank of Ghana. Now, during the final approval, however, the shareholders instead produced placement certificates from financial institutions in their individual names instead of putting the money in
Okay, so instead of putting up the capital for the starting up the establishment of the bank,
they put it in individual names as the document details. But also importantly, and I've heard today from experts that when the Bank of Ghana gives you liquidity support, they will give you an advisor who sort of direct you how to use the money, because this is taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Money given to banks when they are struggling. The central bank does that for a simple reason. If you have your money at the bank and it's collapsing, it's no fault of yours, and the bank goes down, you lose your money. So the Bank of Ghana doesn't want that to happen, because that can have ripple effect in the economy. And so the Bank of Ghana then takes taxpayers' money that they're holding, and it'll give it to the private bank. So the private bank can run with it, so they can service you when you go and
and they would have to put in an advisor, because you have been quote unquote irresponsible, and so they need somebody to oversee
the
how
use of the money.
Use this money.
Okay, now listen to what happened. That in the case of UT and Capital banks, both received liquidity support of UT received liquidity support of 860 million cedis.
That's close to $1 billion.
That's close to $1 billion. Capital Bank received support of 610 million, respectively. Now, after the date of the purchase and assumption, this is the time that it collapsed. That's how much they've taken. It is noted that the two banks repeatedly went to the Bank of Ghana with requests for increased amounts. So although they've gotten this amount, in the period, they were still going to Bank of Ghana and saying, we need more money, help us, we need more money.
And did the Bank of Ghana give them?
It did. Now, and that's what totaled close to $1 billion for UT and 610 million for Capital. So they kept on going. Bank of Ghana kept on giving them, and that totaled until they collapsed. Now, but listen, BOG, in granting the liquidity support to both of the defaulting banks, stated among the conditions that an advisor will be appointed to supervise the use of the liquidity support. And this is an interesting bit of document details. However, the Bank of Ghana did not appoint an advisor as they had promised in their liquidity offer letters to the banks. It didn't. Although they said they would, they didn't. Now, so how then did Capital Bank use the money? They didn't have anybody to supervise them.
Yeah.
So how did they use it? This is a very interesting bit. And I'll tell you reactions coming in from some of the parties who got part of the money. It says that a review of the Executive Committee, EXCO, an emergency board minute reveals that the liquidity support issued by the BOG attracted an associated cost as follows. In other words, when the BOG gives you money, it comes with, and I've heard the banking experts who were on Top Story explain why that is. It comes with punitive interest. Because, as you said, you've run down the bank. We are giving you money, so this time we have to punish you for it. So there's an interest on it. So the amount of money they gave them came with the following costs. So there was first and second tranche. They got 450 million. The cost to that was 90 million. So you get that money, you pay. If you're paying, you have to pay back with 90 million. Third tranche, 170 million. The cost of that was 8.5 million. Now listen, the emergency board and ESCO meeting held on 13th October 2015 reflected management's concern. So management had concerns on the use of the money, the liquidity support that they're giving. Now, this is how the monies were used. So 27 million of that money they got, of the 610 they got, 27.5 million was used for business promotion and handled by a board member. The name wasn't given. 27.5 million.
Used for business promotion.
Business promotion.
Do you actually appreciate what business promotion is?
I have no idea. You have to kind of explain?
Business promotion is essentially the company wants to, it's money essentially you can spend at will.
Okay.
To promote, it's supposed to be used for promoting the business.
Okay.
Except you can't account. You don't need to account for that.
Okay.
And so what you can spend it on anything and nobody will question you.
So 27.5 million went there. And it goes
let's say 27.5 million of unaccountable interest.
Okay. From the liquidity support, from the taxpayers' money. Now, handled by, and this was handled by a board member, name not given. Additionally, there were transfers to IFS Capital of 23.9 million Ghana cedis. There was transfers to Nordia Capital of 65 million Ghana cedis. And to All-Time Capital of 130 million. Now, Mr. Ato Asian, and by the way, IFS and All-Time Capital have tonight issued statements. We'll go into that very shortly. Mr. Ato Asian, founder of Capital Bank, stated that the placement of the 130 with All-Time Capital was strategic, and funds will be paid back by March 2016. And now it comes to what role then did the chairman of the Capital Bank at the time, Dr. Mensah Otabil, who's also the general overseer of ICGC, what role did he play when all this was happening?
Right. So his name also comes up.
Of course. Now, it says, the report says, the chairman of the board of directors, Dr. Mensah Otabil, assured management that he, Mr. Asian, who had said, I'll pay back the money. I'm placing the money strategically, I'll pay back. The chairman assured management that he would ensure the funds were returned by March 2016. Question is, was the money returned? That's a question that we don't know. We don't have a categorical answer to. But then it even gets even more interesting.
I'd want to believe, though, that if the money was returned,
the bank would have gone under. Yeah, I mean, it's safe to assume that, but we don't know categorically.
We don't know that for a fact.
And remember that all the placement that had been done was done in the name of the chief executive of Capital Bank, who apparently signed these documents. Now listen to what supposed to have signed these documents. Listen to what the CEO then says when it got to his attention that the monies are being sent in his name. The former CEO, Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko, denied having signed or authorized any of the commercial paper transactions arranged by either All-Time Capital or Nordia Capital. He subsequently sent a copy to the transaction advisors of an email dated December 14, 2017. So what this means is that post the collapse, because remember that the Capital and UT collapsed in August last year. Post the collapse, as Bank of Ghana started probing, Mr. Fitzgerald then sends details to the transaction advisors and to the board chairman. This is an email he wrote to the board chairman, Dr. Mensah Otabil, and to majority shareholder, Ato Asian. Now, let's read what that email said. Remember that he was complaining that monies have been paid in his name. He was supposed to have signed. I didn't sign. This is what he said in the email to Dr. Mensah Otabil and the majority shareholder and found out to us. And it says, "Dear sir, please, my attention has been drawn to documents purported to have been signed by me in respect of commercial paper for 100 million cedis issued to MC Management Services through All-Time Capital. Please, I haven't signed for any such commercial paper issue and do not know the said company, so will be grateful if you could help resolve this issue. Similarly, commercial paper to the tune of 65 million is also alleged to have been issued by Capital Bank to M&C Services and Britlink Services through Nordia Capital. Remember that M&C Services, Britlink Services, all related to the people who own Capital. Please, I have not signed any such document and do not know these companies. He says, kindly use your good offices to clarify the situation so the truth will be upheld. Thank you. We don't have any further evidence to suggest whether Dr. Mensah Otabil replied to this and what he said, or whether Mr. Tosin replied to this and what it said. There's another interesting bit. Remember that it had been detailed that Nordia received some 65 million. Now, Nordia was questioned, and their response was interesting. Nordia Capital, which was reported to have received 65 million in placement by Capital Bank, denied any such placement, but indicated in two letters to the transaction advisors dated 13th and 28th December 2017 that it had acted as arranger for the issuance of commercial paper. Now, it comes to the reactions we are now getting on the back of all the publishing these since yesterday. Let's start with IFS. And IFS received, from the documents we have, 23.9 million from the liquidity support that Capital got. Now, this is what IFS said in their statement to us today. It says, we have noticed excepts making the rounds on radio and social media regarding payments amounting to 23.9 million made by the defunct Capital Bank Limited to IFS Capital Management Limited from the liquidity support from the Bank of Ghana. Then he says, it appears that it is being misconstrued by sections of the media as an illegitimate payment. We wish to state that the payment was in respect of accumulated debts owed IFS Capital Management Limited, amounting to 23.9 million. This payment was made to us following a petition we submitted to the Financial Stability Department of the Bank of Ghana on 12 May 2015 and the subsequent intervention of the regulator. We wish to assure the public that we took the necessary steps to recover the debts in the interest of our depositors. In other words, the Capital Bank owed us. They simply paid us our money. We don't have any problem with this.
All right.
But
except when Capital Bank was going to pay, they took monies that was supposed to have been given to them by the Bank of Ghana as liquidity support.
And Nana Otu-Champon explains that when the Bank of Ghana gives you liquidity support, there are rules to it. One of the rules is that you cannot use it to pay debt. That's one of the rules. So, and if you want to do so, you have to write to the Bank of Ghana and ask for permission.
All these suggest serious infractions.
But there's more, because All-Time Capital also used a statement. That is a more interesting statement. It says, I'll just read except the relevant portions. It says, in the year 2015, M&C Management Services gave All-Time Capital Limited a mandate to raise funds through the issuance of commercial paper. The purpose of the commercial paper, and this is interesting because it contradicts what the stated reasons were in the earlier. Yes. It says that the purpose of the commercial paper was for the construction of 15,000 square meter office and retail complex at Nojolu, right? But remember that it had been said in the report by Mr. Tosin, who is a majority shareholder, that it was a strategic placement that he made. Strategic, that's the word he used. But All-Time Capital says, well, when they gave us the money, it was specifically to build 15,000 square meter office and a retail complex. He says, at no point was All-Time Limited made aware that M&C Management Services Limited required the commercial paper for obtaining banking license for Sovereign Bank Limited. And this is important. There's a part I need to read to you that will explain why they're saying this. This is all linked to the collapse of Sovereign Bank eventually. And this is why. It says, funds raised through the commercial paper, and this is, I'm returning to the Bank of Ghana Commission report. It says, funds raised through the commercial paper issued by M&C Management Services Limited and Britlink Services were used as capitalization for the establishment of the Sovereign Bank Limited. And remember what the Bank of Ghana had told us, that the shareholders who contributed money to set up Sovereign Bank at one point turned around
and took the money
out. Now, All Time Capital says, listen, at no point was All Time Capital aware that MNC Management Service Limited required the commercial paper for obtaining banking license for Sovereign Bank. They didn't know that. It says, Capital Bank Limited expressed interest in participating in the commercial paper and subsequently invested in it. All Time Capital Limited acted solely as an arranger. And this is another important part, all the necessary documents were duly signed by the Chief Executive of Capital Bank, Reverend Fitzgerald Odonko, and the Chief Executive Officer of MNC Management Services, Dr. Tete Neti. Fitzgerald Odonko says
he never signed.
He never signed the document, and he had written to Dr. Otabol and actually sent to complain that I didn't know anything about it. Please resolve it for me. Now, finally, he says, for the avoidance of doubt, at no point did, and this is responding directly to Ms. Asian's claim that it was strategic investment placement. At no point did Capital Bank Limited nor Mr. Atu Asian place any strategic funds with All Time Capital Limited. Further, and this part is in bold, Mr. Atu Asian is neither a shareholder, director, officer, or an employee of All Time Capital Limited. And then, of course, they have an assurance for their customers. It says, we wish to assure the general public and IC customers and clients that All Time Capital Limited is dedicated to providing services to our customers based on ethics, dedication, efficiency, professionalism, etc., etc. So that's where we are with the details.
Is it? But except there's a whole lot more to this apparently.
Far more.
So there's the bit about UT and all that, because we've dwelled mainly
on capital.
On capital Bank. The bit about UT we actually have posted on our Facebook page. But let's just go through a few of the graphics that we have posted on our Facebook page to just tell you what we actually had as far as UT is concerned.
So related loans, and this is important. Related loans that were given. So we have loans that made to
Kofi
two
Jobs
payments.
Limited.
You have PK Amwabeng, and if from the document, UT Bank, 2 payments were made to the former CEO and director of director, Mr. PK Amwabeng, from the loan defaulting entity. Now, Kofi Jobs Limited.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the loans total 5 million, and you see that in there, 5 million Ghana cedis, and were disclosed to the board of the bank, right? Now, we also have some of the monies that were not disclosed. There was a significant amount of intergroup lending involving other subsidiaries of the holding company, UT Holdings Company. Now, connected party loans were made to Ibrahim Mohammed's related companies, amounting to, as you can see there, 261.4 million cedis and a further 6.4 million US dollars. Now, it also talks about Quincy Centeme's related companies amounting to 84.1 million cedis, which you see at the top there, Quincy Centeme and related companies. And then we also have Beige Group's related companies amounting to 10.9 million cedis. Now, if you look at the
$5 million.
And $5 million, yes. And if you look at the Ibrahim Mahama related companies, they received a total of 261.4 million Ghana cedis, and then a total and a further amount from the document of 6.4, not 1.4, 6.4 million US dollars that they received. And now the interesting thing about this, that the document details, is that in respect of the Ibrahim Mahama related companies, there's a rule that says single obligo. In essence, if you're a bank, you cannot be overexposed to one person, one loan taker of a sort. So if Israel has a bank, I can't go to Israel and take over a certain limit, one person, because the Bank of Ghana places that limit, and it's against your stated capital.
And there's a good reason why the Bank of Ghana would do that. If, for instance, your stated capital is 20 million, if you give me 10 million of your stated capital, and something I'm unable to pay that 10 million, you have lost 50% of your stated capital. And you could go down for that.
Absolutely. So Bank of Ghana doesn't allow that. But they gave 261 million to one person. Now listen to what they did. So they violated that law, that rule. The bank, UT Bank, then sought a waiver of the Ibrahim Mahama related company's single obligo violations by the bank, and yet undertook a pass through 6.4 million US dollars transaction by giving Bage Capital Savings and Loans a further amount of money in US dollars placement as guarantee for Bage to extend 5 million loan to Holman Brothers. So they sort of then goes and say we violated
like money just
moving around,
yeah. Financial engineering,
yeah, capital re-engineering.
All right. I mean, there's a whole lot more to this, and I'm sure there will be more coming in subsequent
Well,
days.
Twitter said tonight that apparently some BOG officials have already been sanctioned, transferred, because of all these revelations that have come up.
I'm not sure whether transfer is actually
of course.
a sanction.
The Dalex Finance, the CEO, was also on the show on Top Story. He was making a point that people need to be prosecuted. He says, prosecuted, go to the Odo River, let it fill up, and throw the prison keys in it.
Okay, that would be a bit too much.
Of course.
All right, but thank you very much, Evans Mensah, for sharing those details, the details of this report that was commissioned by the Bank of Ghana. We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime. Of course, we've gone quite well beyond a time that we were supposed to have done this one.